Okay, hi, welcome. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Jenna Horton, and I'm the manager of community events for youth programming for the LA Galaxy.
Mhm. And you did work with US Soccer, right?
I did, yes. I worked with them for about 4 years, and I've been with the LA Galaxy for about a year now.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you so much for coming on. We love having
Yeah,
you on. So I had some questions that I wanted to ask you on behalf of She Strikes.
yeah, definitely.
So let's just dive in.
Yeah.
Okay. The first question is, you kind of answered this, but where do you work and what's your role there? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, definitely. So with LA Galaxy, we have a good, strong kind of youth programming presence. So think youth camps. We've got different programs and levels all the way from 18 months to 17 years old. So I manage kind of the operations side of it. So the actual camps, setting those up, selling those camps, and then also overseeing kind of the growth of our department and creating new programs that can reach further into our community and reach more players to get them on the soccer field. The camps are, I mean, if you think of like your traditional kid youth camp, summer youth camp, that's kind of the
Yeah.
programming we do. And then we're expanding past that a little bit more this year, which is really exciting.
Okay, is this co-ed?
Yeah, yep, boys and girls. And it's, we see, I'm gonna be blunt, we see more boys and girls at these camps, but a few of the higher level camps, and we had one this past year where one group had, the top group had like 7 girls and 2 boys, and it was like, yes, like it felt really good to see that ratio. But yeah, all skill levels, boys and girls, for all our programs.
Right. I mean, like, we have you on here so we can, up that involvement with girls in sport and just inspire
Yeah,
women. So, okay. Then how did you get involved in like a male dominated industry like sport?
yeah. So I grew up playing soccer. Being in sports was really important to me and my family. So I've just kind of always been around the industry. And then in college, I graduated from the School of Social Work with a concentration on administration of programs. So I was able to kind of tie that love of programs and creating and implementing them with sports. I grew up in Portland, so I got an internship with the Portland Timbers, and it was actually the first year of the Thorns there as well, which was just amazing timing. I got to work with some very, very high class, amazing female athletes, and they were very eager to get in the community. So I was in the community relations department, so I landed an internship that kind of married my love for community programs and impacting youth with sports. And I was thinking about this earlier, and I've actually only had, up to about a few weeks ago, I've only had female bosses in the sports industry, and I've worked for 4 different organizations at this point at
Wow.
the professional level for soccer. So for me to look back on that, as I mean, it's pretty lucky to have that powerful leadership to kind of follow in a male dominated industry.
Right.
Um, so landing that first internship and having an amazing female boss and kind of promoter as an intern was very crucial to kind of my want to stay in the industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I feel like I talk with so many people working in sport and it's their teams are all men or like they're the only one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I think it's been one maybe reasoning for it is I've been on the community side, so more of the nonprofit work and that side, which I don't quote me, but I think the industry has a lot of women in it, the nonprofit organizations, and at high levels, at all levels. So I think it kind of attracted women to that department, the community department for professional sports, which is great. And then most of my teams, I'm thinking back, I mean, most of my teams have been at least 50-50 men and women. So it's been a really good experience in the industry.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm in Portland right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I just noticed there's a total cultural difference here than like anywhere else I've lived, where women's sports are like really celebrated here. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it's on like an equal pedestal.
Yeah, I mean, I love that about Portland. And I think especially, I know a lot more about soccer just because I'm in that specific sport, but with the Thorns, being able to kind of attach to the Timbers and create their own fan base and, impact on the community, that opportunity was awesome for the club. And then, I mean, you have like University of Portland, they have their history of women's soccer national champions through and through. So it's very relevant, and definitely, you're right, celebrated in Portland on the women's sports side.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely my favorite part of living here. And I hope that's really something that starts to bleed into other cities and countries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So then I guess you've had a lot of women bosses, but were there any times you had to battle discrimination at work?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I couldn't come up with any examples that were like blatant discrimination because of my sex or my age or anything like that. Um, so I mean, I've just been very lucky to have that type of leadership to follow and to kind of, I don't know if they necessarily protected me from it, but joining organizations where women were already at C-suite level and director and manager level at every level of the organization, I think joining that type of organization kept me from having to experience any type of that discrimination at work. I mean, I I can't think of anything that's like a definite example. Seeing, moving forward, if I do experience that and kind of note that experience, because also maybe it did happen, but I didn't chalk it up to discrimination. It was just something kind of had to deal with. Being able to see those strong female leads, it kind of gave me like the energy and like the power to believe that I belong there too, and the ability to stand up for myself in anything that might come up in the future or potentially in the past that I just did naturally and didn't really note as a discrimination aspect.
No, I mean, that's fortunately great, but unfortunately rare, where I feel like,
right.
I mean, like, I can definitely think of so many examples of even just things that I've seen from like higher ups in all kinds of industries, where I think honestly sports might be one of the more forward moving industries in terms of equal treatment of employees. So I mean, that's great to hear. It's super encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you with the sports side of it. I mean, recently seeing women being named to GMs and, full-time coaches at NFL teams and referees, and it's not just the players on the field that are making a difference at the professional level, but I think more visibility around women leading teams off the field, in front office, and that type of stuff is quickly, the pace is picking up there. It's been building for so long that I'm really excited to see it kind of break and like push forward and really be visible to everyone.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. So then I guess on the sports side, how do you think, because there is quite a big discrepancy between boys' involvement in sport and girls' involvement. And unfortunately, it's just girls don't feel super encouraged to join sports and stuff. So how do you think we can kind of up that involvement, create a new culture where girls are just as involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think I don't know if you have information or stats behind this, but I feel like there's more sports that boys can play from a young age. I think that's also changing though with, I'm thinking football, for example, from a young age, it's heavily boys. It's a boys sport, right? But now you see kind of at the college level that girls are starting to break into it. But if that's going to happen, I feel like at a young age, there needs to be the opportunity for girls to explore sports like football more. Every sport I'm thinking about right now is boys and girls, which is great. Like tennis, golf, volleyball, like all of them, there's opportunity for boys and girls to play. But I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just, I think at a younger age, the opportunity and the support and like the energy for young girls to try different sports is important. And around that too, just increasing involvement, I think visibility is super important. Obviously with playing sports and starting from a young age and seeing that you can try all these different sports and, you know, go to college with sports or make it pro if you're at that level. But I think the visibility of women in the industry, off the field, off the court, you know, in the front office, that type of stuff is also super important. Because before I learned about my internship with the Timbers that I could possibly get, like I didn't even think about working for a sports team, because you automatically think, oh, that's a male dominated industry, right? So I think the visibility is super important for off the field positions as well, for girls to realize, like, you know, I might not be able to play professionally or even in college, but I can still have an impact on a sport I love or in an industry that is male dominated. So visibility around that. And I think stuff like what you're doing, and US Soccer does a campaign called She Believes. So around that, where there's panels, there's workshops, there's opportunities for girls and young women to see that there are more chances around sport than just being an athlete. And not to knock down athletes at all, because that's super important still too, to have professional women's teams around the world and all that stuff. And then again, going back to the word visibility, just on TV and social media and growing games and sport that way. I think for the She Believes Cup, I saw a stat, I'm probably going to butcher it, and I can follow up with the actual stat on this, but the She Believes Cup game, the first game last week, I believe, was the third most watched women's national team game on Fox or something, where it just keeps going up and up. The excitement around it and the visibility of different platforms and different teams and all of that stuff just needs to be, I think, supported and recognized and elevated, and that's happening. But I know probably you and I are both like, let's go a little quicker here. This can provide so much joy and so much kind of improvement. But I think visibility, just in all sense of the word, is super important to get girls and women's more involved in sports.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel like we don't, like, growing up, obviously professional soccer wasn't an option. Like,
right.
that only very recently became like a viable like career path kind of. But like I absolutely had no idea that girls and women could like become like workers for a team or for an industry. Like, I think it's weird that it's kind of just come to my attention, like, kind of as you said, I didn't realize working in sport was a possibility until like last year when I got involved with Man City, and I was like, oh, maybe this is where I want to go. So yeah, I mean, I think hopefully we help bring kind of visibility to this industry for women. And like, I think just like, you don't even have to be someone who grew up playing to want to work with the sport. So I think that's
definitely. Yeah, I've had plenty of colleagues that didn't, specifically with soccer, that didn't play soccer, but they've ended up in on a team or at a club working for a soccer team. So I think you're right in that you don't have to play it to work for a team or use your skills for a club and to enhance, whatever that club's mission is. So
Right.
I think that's super important. I've even, I think another kind of going along with visibility is I tend to assume that people know about NWSL and
Yeah.
national team and different leagues and stuff just because I'm in it type of thing. So I think it's super important for women like you and myself who are knowledgeable about it to continue spreading the knowledge about it. I used to manage these like fantasy camps for young girls, and there were some education pieces to it. And one camp I remember our coach asked like, who can name 3 NWSL teams? And these girls are like 13, 14. And the first year I did it, they were all like, I don't know, like what is NWSL? And it was just like, oh no, like there's a lot to do
Kind of
here. But then
heartbreaking.
the last one I hosted, they were like over half the girls were like, oh, I can name all of them. So it was really cool to see that like growth, but also making sure that our staff educated them on like, okay, you don't know it, but now you do type of thing, and making sure they understand kind of the breadth of it.
Yeah.
I think is super, super important.
No, that's so good. I mean, yeah, I was definitely like that younger too. Like I couldn't name the women's soccer players, and like that was just, they weren't visible to us. No one
Mm-hmm.
talked about them. They weren't on the news. Like after 99 or so, like they kind of faltered
Mm-hmm.
off in popularity. So it's like I didn't even know they existed. But now it's
Yeah.
like they're my favorite athletes, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I make sure I watch all the games. It's just so exciting for that change to happen even in my own life. And it's like,
Yeah.
kind of to your point about like a lot of sports having boys and girls, like it's not just a boys sport. We had a podcast episode with my friend who is a women's soccer coach,
Nice.
and he's in the UK, and he was talking about how one way he thinks we can combat, lack of girls' involvement is integrating sports more, and like,
Mm-hmm.
instead of having like the girls' sports, which is like field hockey and like whatever, like not football, not soccer. Yeah, like the girly sports, the girls do those, and then like the boys' sport, they do like soccer, basketball, and like whatever. And so he was just talking about how the integration of sports like that with both genders or both sexes it'll be a slow but sure increase, definitely. And I think that's kind of what y'all are doing over at LA Galaxy as well, like having both for your camps. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's important there. I mean, it's just as important to get the young girls involved playing. And even though, yeah, we are a men's club, we can still use our platform and our reach to impact young girls as well. So
yeah.
I think that's super important to do. And making talking about education, making sure our community knows that it's for boys and girls type of thing. So
Yes.
every promotion item we do, it's boys and girls. It's boys and girls. Like, yes, we're a men's club team, but that does not mean anything in the work that me and my team are doing, at least. Which is super important. And then I just had one more thought about the kind of increasing girls and women's involvement, because you made a point about how you're watching games now and you have your jersey on, obviously, and supporting brands and clubs in that way. When I first started, I thought like, oh, I can only support by attending games, by buying tickets and being present. But with this past year, and even previously, but this past year definitely sped it up, by watching a game, by buying a jersey, by sharing a schedule on social media, by asking a friend if they saw the WNBA game type of thing. That those conversations and actions are just as important to enhance the visibility of women's sports. So it's hard to remember, but those smaller actions can have a huge impact too.
Yeah.
Um, to try to grow the outreach and the knowledge of women's sports today.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. That's how everything's been spreading.
Yeah.
So like I think in our generation, or like this cultural moment, that's the way that we can be the biggest advocates for sure.
Definitely.
So then I guess while you've been working with sports industries, working with communities and stuff, do you have like a defining moment in your career in terms of like it changed your mindset on something or like it encouraged you, like anything?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been lucky. Well, I mean, yes, I've been lucky, but I've also worked hard to be in the industry that, on the side of the industry that still gets to work with the community and make impact that way. Um, I mean, my mind just goes to the different programs that I've been able to manage that, when I'm out at our camps at the Galaxy and I see 70 plus youth on the field laughing and playing soccer, a sport I love, and having a good time, and getting out and being physically fit and learning more about the sport and becoming a team member and learning all of that stuff. I think almost every time I'm able to go to an event or a camp or a program that I was able to oversee and manage and implement, I think every time that's kind of my moment of like, okay, like this is good, for kind of a selfish reason, being fulfilled, but also getting to see the how reaching the different community members and the amount of people that you can reach through sport and community. Each time I can take a breath at one of those things, I'm like, okay, this is good. This is this
Yeah.
is a good platform and a good way to do it. By using that club's name and your crest and your ability to reach so many fans and people, to have that social impact, and that creating that community, soccer community or sport community, whether you're in a different sport or not. But I think those are the moments that I kind of live for in my job, and like to create those type of moments for youth and families and parents and all that, by using sport as kind of the platform.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what we're trying to do at Sports Host, like using sport as a platform to unite people because it's incredibly divisive when you go on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much toxicity and like anger and projecting emotions and all of that. So I feel like we have to kind of twist that narrative ourselves. Like we can't let that become what sport is to us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, think about like all the positive things that sport can provide, whether you have played it or you're just a fan watching it, and the emotions it can bring up, and the joy and the defeat, and like, it's a it's kind of getting corny, but it's a universal language, whatever sport
Yeah.
you're watching.
No, I
You're, especially international level,
yeah.
you're playing another country, and that whole country's watching it, and you're all enjoying this one kind of moment in time, and it just can have such a positive impact on so many levels, personally and with family and friends and all that type of stuff. So it's so important to keep that positive kind of vibe going with
Yeah,
sports.
that's beautiful. I've got two more questions for you then.
Yeah.
So I guess, is there any advice that you'd like to give to girls in sport, women looking for careers in sport, all of that?
Yeah. Two things kind of come to mind. One, we kind of already talked about it, but knowing that the opportunities are there, and just, I guess, searching out, but becoming educated about like what type of opportunities, because there's so many different things that a club can offer professionally. I mean, I'm happy to be in community, but there's sales, there's analytics, there's marketing, creative. There's so many different aspects to a sports club, and so many different opportunities. Just becoming more aware of what those are. And then I've really found kind of the joy and the uh, reasoning for networking in the past few years. I hated networking asked me, do you want to go to a networking event 4 years ago? And I've been, nope, no, thank you, because I just didn't like it. But after going to more events and becoming more comfortable with it, I've really found the importance in networking and educating yourself by just talking with other people and learning about other people's past and passions and what their goals are and their projects, what they've done. I found that to be the key way to learn about what opportunities will be available for you too. And creating those relationships and kind of calling on them when you're looking for a job and there's a connection or that type of stuff. So networking, as much as one might hate it in the beginning, is super important and can be really fun, actually. So
Yeah.
I think the education piece and the networking and knowing that there are opportunities out there, and sometimes it might not seem like it, but like we were saying earlier, kind of the path that women are forging in sports industry is moving quicker and growing wider. So I think even more and more there's going to be actual opportunities for women to grow in the sports industry.
Yeah. It's actually really, really funny because I also I hated networking. I was like, I don't get
Yeah.
it. Why do you have to make these business relationships, or I don't like asking people for stuff, all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that actually comes from me being a woman of color, where growing up in America, it's like you weren't really supposed to ask for anything. You had to accept what you were given and hope it turns out well. But, actually being involved with sport, I've definitely seen that changing. And I mean, even reaching out to you, right? Like, it could definitely
Yeah.
be scary, but I'm just realizing more and more how many people want to talk about this stuff and
Oh yeah.
want to connect. So, yeah.
Yeah. And as we as women get more and more roles in sports and at higher levels or at all levels, I think I've realized, again, surrounded by quite a few women at the Galaxy, and we're owned by AEG, which is a whole nother level of a company. It's amazing, but they own other sports teams. I've been able to see women at all different levels, and have found just the reaching out and trying to connect, and not necessarily, I've tried not to look at it like a professional relationship. It's more of a personal one. I just want to learn more about that person and what they've done and things outside of work they enjoy, and creating that base kind of friendship first, and then hopefully down the road being able to work with them again. That base is there and you can grow from that. But I think there's the more women that are in the sports industry, it's great because every single woman I've come across has been willing to help and willing to chat and wants to bring other women up as they grow too. So it's nice.
Yeah, that's huge, actually. Thank you for saying that. I think a lot of people I just graduated college, and a lot of the people I work with are about my age. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
we're all just terrified of everything and everyone. So it's really good to hear you say that, especially from experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And too, I don't want to leave the men I've networked with too out
Right.
of it. Especially in sports, again, kind of going back to, I've been lucky to be in clubs where it's already kind of a attitude of not discriminating against gender, but I think it's important also to network with people in positions that you want to hold one day, whether it's a man or a woman, and just know that they, a lot of the times, that person is going to want to help you get there and will provide as much help and information and all that as possible.
Yeah.
Because you go into it having something in common. You love sports, and then you can just base it off of that and go from there. So, women have been amazing to network with, but I also want to encourage
Mhm.
everyone, women especially, to reach out to men as well and get them in the conversation and
Definitely.
connect with them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's another level that women have to learn to overcome, where it's it can be
Mm.
even scarier to reach out to men, especially men in high
Huh?
positions. So, yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for pointing that out as well.
Yeah. It's scary, but all you got to do is create that email, send it, and it's like, well, now I gotta do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. Well then last question.
yeah.
Who is your favorite woman athlete?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. I have so many names swirling around in my head right now.
You
Oh,
do a top three.
yeah, okay, that's a good adjustment.
Okay.
These are all gonna be soccer players, and just because I've been passionate about the sport since I was
Sure.
young.
Yeah.
I really, really respect Carly Lloyd. Just her whole story and her commitment and skill. Like, she's amazing, and her leadership and her again, bringing women up with her and being a leader of the national team, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Every time she plays, I'm just like in awe of everything that she represents and does. So I'd say her. I would say another soccer player, Tobin Heath. I
Yes.
really like her. I
I was hoping you'd
mean,
say her.
she's spectacular. I had the opportunity to work with her a little bit at the Thorns in the community, and she's just an amazing woman and athlete and everything. So, and it's so fun to watch her play. Like,
Yeah.
it's so
Oh
fun.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably just end it there with those two, because then if I go three, there's like multiple people
Yeah.
there. But I think I've just followed both of them throughout their career, and
I,
actually noticed Tobin, like, watching college soccer too.
mhm.
So I've been kind of following her for a while, but they represent so much more than just an athlete on the field. They've expanded it past the field, which is I think personally important for athletes to use their platform to be able to do that.
Yeah. That must have been kind of a big fangirl moment when you got to work with her.
Yeah, I the first year of the Thorns, there were some really good players on there, and
Yeah.
there still are. And the
Yeah.
NWSL is growing so much with quality players. It's amazing, but there were a few like check yourself moments of, I'm working. I have to like focus. I'm a
Yeah.
fan, which is great, but I have to like also take a step back and be like, oh, I'm an employee.
It's so funny.
So
Last story before I go. Well, I
yeah,
also have Carly's book up on my shelf, so that's funny that you
nice,
said her as well.
awesome.
But yeah, I mentioned I live in Portland and I work
Mm-hmm.
on Northwest 23rd.
Oh, beautiful area.
Yeah, and Tobin actually came into the store I worked at like on my last shift. And I just made a huge fool of myself. I was so excited. And when she left, I like started crying.
Oh, nice.
But
That's fair.
and then the next day I saw her play, but like those experiences really are huge, I think, when you realize that they're real and like
Mm-hmm.
um they're women to be admired and like
Yep.
you admire them for a reason. So it's just awesome that we can look up to women who make us feel inspired and or help us to feel inspired and encouraged and everything.
Yeah, and you make a good point too. I mean, with that opportunity, and then when I was with U.S. Soccer, I ran a donor program at the World Cup, so we got to be around kind of that whole environment and the team, and we were able to go as staff, and then also our donors were able to go to the post championship party. So being around the team and seeing them celebrate their successes and like being proud of themselves and a team and having fun and dancing and celebrating really was like oh, they're athletes, but they're also just humans. Like, they have their struggles and they have all that, and they celebrate the big wins and all of that. So I think you're right when you are able to engage with players in general, and it kind of brings them back to that more like human level. That's super important too, and you kind of get that hopefully through working for a club team or in the sports industry. You kind of realize the glamour of the athlete, the professional athlete is there, but also you get to see kind of their human side too.
Yeah. Okay, well,
So,
thank you so much for coming
yeah,
on.
of course.
We loved
Yeah,
having
thanks
you.
for reaching out.